Home is where your story begins, but what happens when you leave it behind? I'm your host, Aditya Mehta, and this is Diaspora, where each week we share inspiring stories of immigrants from the Indian subcontinent who left everything they knew and built something entirely new while still staying connected to their roots. Today is our 26th episode, which marks 6 months of creating this show week after week. So we wanted to do something a little bit different today. We're going to spend this hour reflecting on the show so far, talking about its evolution and highlighting key moments and conversations from the past 6 months. So my guest and co-host for today is our producer, Dr. J.D. Wyneken, who's had a front row seat to the show, quite literally, because he sits in the side studio watching each episode. And he steps in on breaks and gives us feedback. He's going to drive the conversation along with me today and get my inputs on all the things that we talked about earlier. So welcome to the show, JD.
Thank you very much. Very excited to be here. Congrats on 6 months. That's a big deal.
Time flies, right?
It does. But the show has grown so much in so many ways. So Congratulations to you. I know you're having a lot of fun with it. I'm certainly enjoying it every week that I come in.
Yeah, I've seen people come up to me, and not unknown people, known people, and they say, I've been listening to your podcast. It's great. Because one of the things I was keen on is never to badger people to listen to the podcast, including my wife.
Right.
I don't say, hey, did you listen to did you hear this episode? I just put it out there and let people consume it.
Well, that's my job, is to pester people to listen to your podcast. But it seems to be finding a natural flow to more and more listeners. And that's the best kind of show. I think.
Yeah, and I'm really enjoying it for sure. In keeping with our tradition, I know you were born in Reno, Nevada.
Yeah, I was.
So you get to ask me that if Reno was an Indian city, what city would it be?
Okay, so if Reno was an Indian city, what city would it be?
Smaller town, kind of by the desert, a lot of natural beauty. I would compare it to a town called Jaisalmer in Rajasthan.
Oh, okay.
It's close to the Pakistan border, so it's deep into the Thar Desert in India.
Okay.
And a small town of 300,000-400,000 people, and very beautiful desert. And they have a fort. It used to be a princely state.
Okay.
So I think that's what I would compare Reno to.
That seems like a good comparison. I like how small towns have different definitions in the Indian context. So that's up in the northwestern part of the country, right?
Yes.
It's up near the
yes, in Rajasthan. Yeah.
Got it. I got it. Okay.
It was the last vacation I took before I moved to North America.
Was there?
Yeah.
Is it a resort town?
It's not a resort town, but there's a lot of history and culture there.
Gotcha.
You can ride camels in the desert. You can go to live in what used to be a palace, like a hotel.
Oh, wow.
They have a lot of these palace hotels there.
Okay. Well, Reno bills itself as the biggest little city in the country, and it's in Nevada, so gambling is big, but it's got an Old West kind of feel, or western expansion across through the deserts of Utah and Nevada to the Sierra Nevadas and into California. So, not far from Lake Tahoe. So I have no memory of it growing up because I moved from there when I was 9 months old, but I've been back a couple times since then, and it's pretty scenic. It's right there though, on the edge of the mountains and the desert though. So it sounds like a good comparison. All right. Okay, cool. I got to participate in something like a regular part of the show. That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. All right. So I think for a 6-month episode, for kind of a retrospective, I think it'd be good to start with where this idea came from for you, because for me to produce it was a no-brainer, as we say.
Yeah.
But you had the idea. So tell everybody about where this idea for this show came from.
Yeah. When I was running my new immigrant platform in Canada called Diaspora, I had a podcast as part of the marketing content strategy. This was COVID. I had no experience in podcasting. There was no ChatGPT at the time to help me design a show. So I did 8 amateurish episodes and then joined the podcast graveyard. But I always wanted to do something on those lines once again. And when I resurrected it, I wanted it to firstly talk about immigrant stories. I think it's a very important time to be talking about how immigrants add so much value, do so many interesting things, and also are frankly not that different from everyday Americans.
Absolutely.
And how there's so many things that are shared and in common versus different. I also wanted to, create some social impact, both for second generation Indians to see what kind of challenges their first generation has gone through so that they can have a good life here. It's also a creative outlet and a way of leaving a legacy behind of something that will continue to exist after I'm gone. So.
Well, and it makes sense knowing you the way I do, having known you on the outside of this as your friend.
Yeah.
I know those are all things that are important to you because you've been over here for a really long time.
Yeah, 10 years total, more than 10 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that include your time in college down in Texas?
Yeah,
okay.
4 years then, and then 4 years in Vancouver, and then now 3.5 in Seattle.
Right. And I mean, that's a long period of time.
Yeah.
Right, to be here.
Yeah.
And so, and in the meantime, you've adopted on some American style loves like college football.
Boats, barbecue, and baseball.
Boats, barbecue. That's really good. That's really good.
And of course, the first true love of anything American is college football.
Yeah, yes, certainly, particularly if you went to school in Texas.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. I know that, and I think that's why I was so interested in producing the show, and it's been really rewarding from my standpoint because it's done all of those things, right? It's done all of those. For me, and I think listeners should know this, yes, I'm here every week to, sit in the other studio and listen and help facilitate with your guests and things like that to give feedback in real time, between recording parts. But really the number one reason, really quickly, I ended up still coming back wasn't because you needed any help. It was because of how much I was learning in the very way that you intended this to be.
Yeah.
I was learning, and I got to watch your guests and experience your listeners getting all of those things over the last 6 months. So you've really accomplished what you set out to achieve, I think. Do you think you've done that so far?
Yeah, I do think I've met those goals. I also think this is still the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of, interesting people left to interview. Maybe have people coming in who have a bigger impact around the world in what they do. I've known most of my guests personally, and of course they have great stories, not to discount that. But I would definitely want to have people who have inspired a broader audience and have them come on the show. I was nervous about myself as an interviewer as to how I would do. And I see my early episodes. I've definitely become more naturally flowing since then. But what would you think my interviewer journey has been?
I think it's been one of recognizable growth every week. I think you're at a point now where you're a lot more comfortable. You're very comfortable with what you're doing. You have a set kind of approach that you want to take. Having done this with my own podcast and with other ones, one of the things I think is universal across the board for hosts is they have to be able to both go where it is they want to go and make sure they're adjusting to the needs, the comfort level, the points their guests are making, right? So you have to be creative on the spot, but you also have to be prepared.
Right.
You've always been really good at having the prepared part going, and then the adjusting, as you might remember, I told you before you started, you're just going to have to learn as you go. And you've gotten really good at that. In fact, because I see the notes of where you want to go for the show, I can tell when you're making moving something from one spot to another or making the executive decision to follow down a certain track with your guests that you just weren't expecting. Yeah. And that's a really great thing to be able to do. And there's not always one right way to do it.
Sure.
You follow that down. Because if a show is successful and a guest has a good experience and people are listening and they enjoy the guest, you have all the more reason to bring that guest back. Yeah. Right. So that part's great. So I think you've become even more adept at this as time goes by. I never saw you struggle though.
Yeah. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So and a lot of my guests, when they look at my show notes that I have in front of me, they're like, wow, this is like legit. Like you're doing real prep. But then they're also like, and knowing you, Addy, we expected nothing different. So that definitely helps. There's been a few moments where I've had curveballs thrown where, someone just gave one-word answers and I had to draw them out and change the flow of the conversation by talking about something they're very passionate about.
Yes.
I've also had cases where someone on the fly decided they don't want to talk about something that they agreed to talk about earlier.
It happens.
So those have been interesting challenges, but I don't think it comes across on the end product that I was thrown off balance.
No, I don't think so. And that happens a lot. And people know that, right? People know that. And, in the podcast world that we live in, people recognize those things. I think what's been so remarkable about your progression has been how from the very beginning you've managed to keep every episode, no matter how it is, focused on those goals you talked about at the beginning of the show. And keeping that in mind as you are going about an episode requires some kind of adept movement intellectually and kind of emotionally
Yeah.
because it's so important to stay present, which you do.
Yeah.
And you also have to be aware that you're listening for the listener,
Yes.
right? Because you're in the spot of the listener,
Yeah.
right? You're asking those questions, and you want to be thinking about what a listener would be asking as well. And I think that you've done a great job of doing that. And I think since the very beginning, you've done a nice job of that. I think if anything, you're more used to it now than you were. So it feels less challenging is my sense. It feels less challenging now than maybe it did at the
The active listening part was really hard. That's naturally I'm not a good listener, but it has actually helped me do a better job listening in other parts of my life too.
I would say probably that remark about not being a good listener, that's probably your own perception of that.
Okay.
I think you're actually a better listener than you give yourself credit for.
Okay. Good to know.
Yep. Okay, so with that in mind, like with your guests, what's the experience been like for you, and do you think for them in terms of how they felt coming in? How did they feel in the process? How did they feel afterwards? What's been your experience there?
Yeah, most guests who have done podcasts too are used to doing podcasts in their area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So we had Mr. Khaja Ahmed. He's a cybersecurity expert.
Right.
He's done lots of cybersecurity podcasts. One thing that is been very interesting for my guests, in my opinion, is that we talk about society and culture and their roots and where they come from. So it has made guests recall memories from their childhood, which they had not talked about for forever.
Mm-hmm.
It has made guests nostalgic. It has also made guests feel more strongly about where they come from and their identity.
Mm-hmm.
And they are the common theme, like I said earlier, was that this is a legit setup. We're in a studio.
Right.
We have these notes here. They get this briefing form in advance. They get like this template to share on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So they're impressed by how of a well-rounded outfit it is. And then they're impressed in, I guess, my ability to draw out things that they hadn't thought about for so long.
Right.
So.
Well, and I think that was an interesting common thread that I noticed from the other studio is sometimes I think not being fully aware they were going to be talking so much about themselves, right? Rather than an expertise point of view or, and there's so many podcasts that do that. And of course that can be great, right? Having people talk about their area of expertise. It's something that they're obviously experts in. People that are interested in that, maybe other experts or amateurs are interested in that. However, the podcasts that really, I think, resonate, and recent research shows this actually, are the ones that are conversational and get beyond just the expertise, get beyond just the quote unquote, the interview. I think the strongest part of this show is you end up having conversations, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can say they're interviewees, right? And you're the interviewer, but it's a conversation, which I think is a lot more engaging, a lot more interesting. And I think the response you've been getting to the show has to do with the fact that it's so well done conversationally.
Right.
Rather than in a quote unquote interview style.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And with that, connected to that, like, with guests that you've known well, you mentioned that you know a lot of them.
Yeah.
What's it been like in terms of learning new things about them, literally on the spot in the middle of the show?
I've learned things about guests who I've known for most of my life. There have been guests who I've known them all of their lives, like my cousin Namit, and he gave me some insights on the type of work he does, and I never knew that. A close friend of my, Vikram, his dad worked in Iran. I didn't know that. Someone who I like, the chef, Karan Suri, he lived in Assam when he was growing up, which is like, remote part of the country.
Right.
I didn't know that. So I've discovered things in the interviews from people who I thought I knew extremely well. I guess that's a testament to the show that they feel comfortable enough to share something like that to random listeners. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think it's testament not only to your relationship with them, but again, that preparation, right?
Yeah.
With all of that. Yeah. That can be a challenge though, as an interviewer, to hear something you weren't expecting. Now, I know you don't make sure that the conversation is scripted, right? It's not a scripted conversation.
No.
So that's to be expected, but that can be a challenge when something, something jumps out.
It's been mostly pleasant. So it's nothing like, that girl who broke up with you, that was me. She broke up it was nothing crazy like that.
Nothing crazy, yeah.
So one question I asked my guests who know me well is their first impressions of me. So what was your first impression of me in that Starbucks in Issaquah, where we met for the BNI interview.
Right. Yeah, just to set the stage. You'd applied to join a networking group that we're a part of, and I was on the committee that did the interviews.
Yeah.
And we were meeting at a Starbucks. I arrived. I did not have a sense of what you looked like. I think that had me not looking at your LinkedIn profile just yet. So I came in, and it was pretty crowded, as I remember, and there were some open tables, pretty big Starbucks, actually.
Yeah.
And so I came in, I sat down at a table, and you're going to remember this better than me, but we had an exchange, like, you'd said, I'm here at such and such a spot. And I realized just by looking around really quickly who was on their phone that you were literally right next to me.
Yeah.
And so I got up, sat down at the table,
and
I said, here I am. There was something like that.
Yeah, you said, I'm on my way.
Okay.
And then you got up from your table and sat in that table next to it.
Hello.
Yeah.
All right. My first impression of you actually turned out to be really accurate on who you are. Very organized, very prepared, very friendly, a sense of humor that snuck up on me because you have a very deadpan sense of humor.
Yep.
And it comes out of nowhere at no predictable time.
Yep.
And not around predictable subjects. It can come from anywhere. And that was very much a pleasant surprise. I tend to be similar in that I like to make fun and poke humor at a lot of things. So my initial impression of you was very positive. And so that was a very easy choice for us to bring you into the group. And then I really think my biggest first impression, though, was established when we met for the first time as group members.
Yeah.
I came to your office.
We didn't talk about work
We didn't talk about business at all.
We talked about airport architecture.
Yeah. We talked about airplanes. We're both joint huge fans of all things aviation. And so that was such a key
The first question I asked you was that, do you have a 707 in your phone number by design?
And the answer was yes.
Yeah.
And if the only reason I went with 707 is that was the only airplane that was available. I wanted 747.
Sure.
But I couldn't find 747.
Oh, that's the OG jet, right?
That's the 707 is the is the OG original. So I figured that would be a good second choice. But yes.
Oh, thank you for sharing that story.
Absolutely.
Let's go into our first break right now. And when we come back, we're going to spend most of the rest of the show talking about our favorite moments from all the different episodes so far. So stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to a very special episode of Diaspora on KKNW, where we share interesting stories of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent. We're doing a 6-month recap today and talking to our producer, Dr. J.D. Wyneken. Before we get back to talking to JD, I want to take a moment to remind you to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can find all our episodes in video form there. So, JD is now going to ask me about some favorite moments from the show.
Yeah, there's plenty, I'm sure. And so kind of sorting these down, I'm sure will be a bit of a challenge in its own right.
Yeah.
As you said at the top of the show, I've been on board for pretty much every episode you've recorded. I think I've missed a few here and there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I've been literally right next door watching. And so I have a sense of where some of these might go, but you have a lot to choose from. So I'm sure kind of filtering this down is just going to be a small sample. I mean, there's plenty of examples we could draw from because I know you've been really pleased with the conversations, and I think the listenership proves that. All right, so let's talk about some different ones. What are some ones when they come to mind, you just look back and they were funny, just really funny moments?
I think the one that comes to mind the first was our very first episode with Juhi.
Mm-hmm.
She's a very outdoorsy person, and I was joking about doing this really tough hike when she was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a quick look at that snippet.
Yeah.
Speaking of baby, I've heard rumors that you did the grouse grind, which is the toughest hike in Vancouver. It climbs 800 meters in like 3 kilometers while you were 9 months pregnant. And part 2, after doing it, you didn't enjoy it that much. You went for another hike just for fun. Is that true?
It's not 100% true because I did it when I was 8 months pregnant, not 9 months pregnant.
That is so much easier. As a guy who's obviously never been pregnant, that makes total sense.
Oh, man. I love how she just said, well, no, it wasn't 9 months.
Yeah.
It was 8 months.
Yeah.
I did this grueling hike.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a 2,400 feet in 2 miles, something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a staircase. It's not a hike.
Absolutely. I just love how that was the caveat. She wanted to make sure it was there.
Yeah.
She kind of undersold because the rest of the answer would have been, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's hilarious. And in the very first episode, I remember that being a really funny moment. Okay, so that's a good one. What's another one that comes to mind?
Not so much funny, but witty, I would say, was our friend Shashank talking about, he has a lot of one-liners in his episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked him about people being friendly and, being able to make friends in a small place like Sudbury, Ontario.
Oh, yeah, because it's a pretty rural area where he lives.
Yeah, not super diverse, right?
Mm-hmm.
People there may not be used to, immigrants settling there.
Mm-hmm.
And he had some really good one-liners about the place. So let's take a look at that one. So have you made any really close friends in the past 2 or 3 years?
I would say to this point that I've observed that the colder the place, the warmer the people. So I'm in a place
Nice.
where it's like it touches almost minus 40 sometimes in harsh peak winters. But then when I joined my current entity, that's Knockout, I I mean people give so much warmth. Like in the first, I would say, first week itself, I had mittens for my kids. I had a home-made cake for my family,
Wow.
and they helped me get my first car here and get me my first, my first home as a tenant.
I love that. The colder the place, the warmer the person. I really like that comment a lot. Although if people listening to this are in hot climates, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not warm. You're not warm.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I love that. And talk about one of those moments that I can relate to as a non-Indian listener. I've lived next door to the Canadians my whole life.
Yes.
Right? Literally and figuratively. And it's really fun to sometimes, go back and forth with the differences and the similarities.
Yeah.
I remember being in Toronto with a good friend of mine one time, and we couldn't figure out something was wrong in this big city. We couldn't figure it out. It took us about an hour to figure out nobody was honking their horn.
Yeah.
We're like, wow,
Yep.
Canadians are that polite that they're not honking in the middle of what is essentially
big city.
their New York City,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's amazing. So I remember chuckling a lot at those one-liners because you can tell in that episode, they're so good-natured, and he has such a deep appreciation for the kindness of where he lives, because he understands that's a big deal. When you are from literally the other side of the world, to be greeted like that in a rural area means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Some other ones that kind of...
A funny one was, I'm a South Bombay kid,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever we go through our first world problems, we tend to go to Goa, which is a beach town, to chill.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to our friend Vibhu Pasi of the real estate broker, and he had a very similar story. And so it was interesting to discover that. Let's take a quick look at that one.
I'm just another 20-some-old trying to start a startup in Delhi, and I think I'm being a little too naive. So I pulled the plug on that plan 3 months later and went to Goa. I was like, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to sit in Goa and figure out what I'm going to do.
You know what? I went back to India. I did a bunch of startup ideas. I evaluated them. 4 or 5 months, I concluded that I don't think this is for me, and I went to Goa.
Yeah, it's funny. We have a lot of commonalities in our journey.
I find that one so good too. I mean, just envisioning you going off to go to kind of reestablish or reevaluate yourself. I mean, that's such a universal thing too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I spent a lot of time in my life down in Southern California, and I remember people doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Going, you mentioned first world problems. Something doesn't go well, go to Malibu or go down to Rosarita Beach in Mexico and kind of figure out what you're doing next. You know, that kind of thing. I love that. Interestingly enough, that's a place I've always wanted to go. Well, I shouldn't say always. Ever since I saw the Born Supremacy movie, and there's a scene that takes place at the beginning of that is in Goa.
Oh yeah.
I really wanted to go there. The beach looks amazing.
It's a Portuguese colony which joined India much later than independence.
Right.
So it retained a lot of its Portuguese character. It's a very unique place in the world.
Yeah,
sure.
I'd really like to go there. All right. Well, I know there's other types of episodes that, besides funny ones. I remember several where I could sort of see from the other side of the glass that you were kind of moved or kind of brought to like, wow, like moments of something awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
What about episodes like that? What are the ones that come to mind?
The conversation with Somnil Das was exceptional when he described his time in Siachen, which is a glacier and probably the world's highest battlefield. And this is a bit of a longer clip, but I promise it's it's worth the listen. So let's take a quick look at that one.
I think some of the corporates have also borrowed. Like if you are going to a supporting kind of a department, you need to first go to the field and see how things are there, right? In operations. So we had to compulsory go to the field, and my first posting was in in Siachen Glacier.
Wow.
So one of the highest battlefields in the world, people say. And I lived there for almost I climbed the glacier a couple of times because of different reasons. Like we had a lot of weather casualties. There was a war which was taking place every day. There was bombing and shelling and things are going around.
Yeah.
But it was I was 22 and pretty exciting time of my life. And say I did this, done that, and saw things very closely. A lot of maturity happened in my life very early because of all these experiences, I can say.
Yeah. So for our listeners, Siachen is a glacier which is it's sort of a intersection where the Indian part of Kashmir and the Pakistan occupied Kashmir and the Chinese occupied Kashmir that they claim, they all meet at Siachen, right? And so it's a perennial flashpoint, and it's one of the most, not just the highest battlefield, but one of the most challenging environments that you could be posted at, let alone be actively engaged in a war at. So how long did you spend in Siachen?
So initially I was managing a forward post for almost 4 months, right? You're supposed to stay not more than 3 months at a stretch because of the weather. The weather is very harsh. Like you were staying at an altitude which is almost 18, 19, 20,000 feet sometimes, right?
Wow.
And the oxygen is very, very fight. I'll give you one example. Like if you want to tie up your shoelaces, you will feel breathless. It's that less oxygen and your body needs to acclimatize. So that's why, but we had some weather issues because of which we couldn't move out. So initially I stayed for 4 months and then again I climbed the glacier. This time I managed the logistic base for another 3 months. And then the third time I climbed Glacier with two journalists who are visiting from the United States. They were part of Outside Magazine. Actually, they interviewed me. It's there in the February 2002 issue of Outside Magazine. And I climbed with them again and went to the forward logistic base and then we came back. So you just cannot fly into a glacier, right? Because of the high altitude, you need to, every 1,000 feet you gain, you have to acclimatize for a couple of days. Otherwise, you try to develop pulmonary edema or cerebral edema, which is very fatal. So that's why people have to walk, and it's a very lengthy process. Like, it takes for 12 days, 14 days, 15 days. Like it took me 21 days to reach my forward post when I started climbing for the first time.
Wow.
So I started from 12,000 feet, and then we went up to almost 20,000.
Wow.
In 21 days, yeah.
I remember that blew me away the first time I heard it because, I mean, that type of altitude.
Yeah.
And it took him 3 weeks
to acclimatize.
Acclimatize to that, and the images of like reaching down to tie your shoes and being winded from that because you're at 19,000 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I think about when you fly in an airplane above 10,000 feet, you need oxygen.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're doubling that practically, and you're guarding a frontier, right?
Yes.
A contested frontier in the middle of the highest mountain range on the planet.
Yeah.
That's incredible to me. I remember that was just a riveting story. He had a lot of really interesting stories in that episode.
Yeah.
All right. So that one, in terms of that, was it the same for you? That was the awe of it, was like that you had to do it that way, or?
Yeah. And also in India, it's a common statement, that our soldiers are up in Siachen fighting for us. So you hear Siachen a lot.
Okay.
But I've never met anyone who's actually been there.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it was so fascinating for me.
Got it. So it made something that you've heard for a long time really real in a visceral way. Okay. All right. Any other ones? Awe-inspiring.
Yeah, Priyanka Desai's story on how she made the show called Not Your Butter Chicken.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really good one, especially for... Let's first watch it and then we'll talk about it.
Sure.
And then I put together the show, and I really wanted to make a show that puts South Asians, Indians in a light that is beyond the food or beyond butter chicken. So that's where the idea came from.
Yeah.
I really wanted it to be like, it was just my way of saying we are more than our food.
Yes.
We are more than butter chicken. Like,
Yeah.
I've always talked about this in all my interviews for Not Your Butter Chicken, is like, how is the entire subcontinent's lived experience, history, culture is reduced to this one little greasy dish, butter chicken.
Right.
And that's exactly what I wanted to challenge. And that's how Not Your Butter Chicken came about.
Oh man, a lot of things come up for me in that, but what comes up for you in that?
The way she described, that unfortunately, the whole shared experience of an entire civilization is boiled down to this greasy dish.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really strong mission to go on. And I really appreciate how she has come from a different country into a industry where you don't usually see Indian people, and established herself to the point of becoming a director of a show and producer of other shows and doing something that ties back to our culture. I think that's a huge win.
Absolutely. For me, it encapsulates one of the greatest things I think about the show in general, and that is that I have learned as a non-Indian listener, which is an audience that we're looking to reach with this, to kind of see those common bonds. I have learned so much about how varied and diverse and unique each different state and area of India is. You've had guests compare it to all different types of models that are more familiar to a Westerner like me, like looking at it more as Europe.
Yes.
Right. Some commonalities, but differences in language, differences in culture, not always liking one another. Right. That type of thing. Very different cuisines. Right. It's something that in the Western context I'm very used to. I know that Italian food, German food, French food, and British food are all pretty different.
Yeah.
I can tell you why. But until I started listening to these episodes, I didn't have a full appreciation for that about India. And so I think that episode did a lot, I think, for that, to show that. And it's led to many more questions and interests of me in where you're from.
I had ChatGPT 5 do an analysis and watch every single episode.
Of course you did.
And tell me how I'm doing as an interviewer, and how it rates the show in terms of the quality of the content. And then I asked her to choose a favorite episode, and it chose Priyanka's episode as the favorite one.
I bet.
With a very thoughtful, long explanation as to why it was. So.
Yeah, that was a really good one. I think that encapsulated so much of what the show is about in one episode. Okay.
Yeah. Let's,
really good.
Yeah, let's go into another break. And then when we come back, we'll continue talking about some more of these favorite episodes. I'm really enjoying this conversation.
Yeah, this is fun.
All right. Stay tuned and we'll be back after these messages. Welcome back to a very special episode of Diaspora on KKNW, where we share interesting stories of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent. I'm your host, Aditya Mehta, and we're doing a 6-month recap and talking to our producer, Dr. J.D. Wyneken. Before we jump back into the conversation, if you like listening to our show, please consider following us on Instagram or leaving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. We recently got our first 5-star review, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. And it wasn't somebody I know. So
there we go.
Yeah.
That's always good. It's always a good moment.
Yeah. So let's get back to talking about favorite clips.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of categories so far. I think one we haven't looked at are the ones that, again, I've seen many examples of, that surprised you with their emotional weight or meaning.
Yeah.
What are some of those that come to mind?
Yeah, there's 2 that come to mind. The first one was with our friend Ranil Herat. He was talking about mango memories, and it was something that transcended his and my childhood, though we are from different countries. So let's take a quick look at that one.
The school I went to, Trinity in Kandy, when you leave, there's a guy who cuts raw mangoes and puts chili powder and salt and sell it to you for a couple of rupees.
Oh, yeah.
So you want to eat that. So that's something the mango guy outside the school get.
Yeah, we had that one outside our school too.
You did? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had, so my school is right next to a place called the August Kranti Maidan, which is a big playing field. That's where the Quit India movement started in 1942. It was launched from there by the Indian National Congress. So our school is smack next to it. It's a Gandhian values school. Now it's become one of these international schools. But so we'll go into this Maidan, huge, 20 different cricket matches going on in parallel. Right, so if you're standing at the cover position for your pitch, you're actually in the way of someone else's pitch because it's so close to each other. And then we had 2 rupee pocket money, and we would use that to eat these. That guy's name was Balu. I still remember.
Really?
Yeah, you kind of unlocked a very core childhood memory for me as well.
It truly is. It might be my favorite segment. When Mango Memories comes up, I'm always locked in on that, because that does seem to be one that is universal.
Yeah.
Among, a very diverse country, but that seems to be a very common one.
Yeah, and he's not even from the same country.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I remember experiencing that episode, listening to you guys talk about it. And I could tell both of you were taken back in time that moment. I think it really sees it. And I would encourage anybody who either hasn't seen or listened to the episode yet, or just listened to the episode, to go watch the video.
Yes.
Because you can see it.
Yeah.
You can see the reaction in that, and the connection you guys had with that. It was really cool.
And the other one was my friend Aditi Shah. I was in elementary school with her, and I had not spoken to her even in school, for that matter. So, so technically I know her for 30 years, but we have never really spoken.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her to describe our school, and that got me very, very nostalgic. So let's take a look at that one too. So tell us more about New Era, the school, and what its legacy is, because I don't think most people, even in Bombay, know about the school and its history.
Yeah, it is interesting. And this is kind of like a hindsight vision, right? When you're in school, you don't realize these things.
Yeah.
So the school was set up in 1927 when India was still under British rule, right?
Yeah.
So the founders were driven by this sense of national pride and wanted to create a co-educational, child-centric school, something radical for the time. And they were inspired by Gandhian secular nationalism, Rabindranath Tagore, the Nobel laureate's holistic philosophy that he used to set up Shantiniketan, and Maria Montessori's progressive education model. This mix, I believe, gave the school grounding, right?
Yeah.
Intellectually open, culturally rooted, and quietly rebellious in the best way possible, right?
Yeah.
And of course, like over the years, school changed, the crowd changed, but the reality is that it was popular at the time to go to a convent school. But my parents felt that it was important for the kids to learn the mother tongue, and its rich legacy and history was important, right? And even in modern day, if you think about it, its inclusivity was unique. Do you remember on Fridays we had Sarva Dharma Prarthana? That
Yes.
was like
All
prayer for all religions,
religion prayer.
right?
Yeah.
We had Islamic prayer, we had Catholic prayer, we had Zoroastrian because our principal was Parsi.
Yes.
So I thought that was pretty cool, even though we were in a homogenous environment, right? With like similar demographics, South Bombay.
Yeah.
But I thought that was unique.
You're quite a wordsmith, Aditi, because quietly rebellious. Like I never thought of New Era as that, and it's actually making me very nostalgic about school, and making me miss school. It's a time of your life, and people always say, "Oh, school days were the best days," and I was like, "No, I had way more fun in college." But like now, just listening to you, it was a special place for sure.
Man, Addie, I can tell her description of the school really moved you.
Yeah.
And it caught me. It's like, wow, that was such an impressive description of that. And I had no idea, right, that such an important movement in India's history began right just across the street. And, to me, that was a fascinating part of it. The historian in me loved that part.
Yeah.
Right. But talk about another moment where I saw two people really connect over something that was shared.
Yeah.
You guys had that moment, and I could see you trying to hold it together. You're actually trying to hold it together right now.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because I thought it was profound what you said. You think about college, you think about those things, but having somebody else reflect that back, something to us, where we look back on something that maybe we've either minimized or we've never really gone back and paid attention to, can be really powerful in the moment. So I can tell that stuck with you too since then.
Yeah, definitely did.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. Another category, if you will. I've learned a lot about India, as I mentioned before, from listening to this show.
Yeah.
There have to be moments where you learn something
about
where you're from that you didn't know about.
Oh, yeah, for sure. One that comes to mind is Karishma Wadhwani, the career coach, talking about the Sindhi community. They're known as a community without a land because all of the Sindh province went to the Pakistan side during partition. And she gave a very interesting description of how that has shaped the mindset of the Sindhi community. So let's take a look at that one. So tell us more about the Sindhi diaspora all around the world and what were the impacts of that, the whole partition and not having a home state.
So firstly, I genuinely believe that Sindhis are a very resilient population, and primarily it's, I think, because we are education focused and business focused.
Yeah.
And very circumstances focused in the sense that we like to not be the victim, but the warrior in the circumstance. And whatever happened during the partition, like I can tell you the story of my grandparents. Both sides, so my paternal and my maternal grandfather, both actually knew each other. They lived in the same city in Hyderabad, Sindh, which was at the time India, but on the Pakistan side, as we know right now. And they were all, primarily Sindhis are known for either being educated, working in like government sector, or business. Like these three things we have received from our ancestors. And because they're street smart, they've been able to build wealth and like that kind of family setting. Now, both grandparents were doing really well in their individual lives and families back then. And then literally overnight, they became refugees in their own country to save their life, to save their family, and to just live in a manner that seemed authentic to them at the time. And the unfortunate part for, I think, Sindhis is we don't have that land state. Like everything was left behind. The challenges that come with it is there is no visual association to where we belong necessarily. But that's where I think Sindhis nailed it. They're like, you don't give us the state, we'll conquer the world. Right. Because, I mean, I've traveled a lot. And I remember I was on the southernmost tip of New Zealand, very close to Antarctica. And I still found a Sindhi there. And
was it Fox Glacier? Because that's where I found a Sindhi too. Yes. Maybe we found the same Sindhi.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Man, I love that clip too. You can see and hear, right, in her voice and in her demeanor, the visceralness, connectedness of how she feels about that. And it's such an important part of that. Now, what about that did you not really know?
Of, not having a land you can call your own, how that makes you more tenacious and how that, I mean, all the different ways in which that impacts you, because land is a great tool to build generational wealth.
Yes.
And the fact that Sindhis are so successful even without having that land to bank on that was quite amazing realization for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Man, yeah. And that type of appreciation for me, it had me thinking, boy, talk about something that isn't just unique to them, right?
Yeah.
There's a number of places around the world where something like that is going on.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about that, listening to her talk about that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Any other ones?
A lighthearted one is when Adev Mansaiya was talking about the Patiala peg. It's a short clip, but let's take a look at that one. Most people know Patiala because of the Patiala peg. So tell us more about what that is and how that story came about.
So yeah, it's actually a fun story because during the reign of Maharaja Bhupinder Singh, who's actually a very well-renowned Maharaja of India for various things, for his jewels, for his big lavish parties and stuff like that. So he had invited a polo team from England to play with the Maharaja's team in Patiala. And the night before the match, he obviously hosted the teams and the spouses and whatnot. And during the party, so I think the English team had a bit too much to drink. And the next day, they were actually favorites, and they actually lost that polo match to the Patiala team. And so they named it that they lost the match due to the Patiala pegs, because the Punjabis are known to, handle their alcohol quite well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how the Patiala peg came about.
So it's 90 milliliters. So it's like a triple.
Actually the measurement, let's say a large is this, they say a Patiala peg is this.
Okay.
Right. So it's actually like a double, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of whiskey. I mean, if you're listening to this and you didn't see the video, hold your hand out in a fist, take your pinky finger out, hold it straight, and then take your index finger and point it outward, put it down against the base of the glass with your pinky, and you fill up the glass to the top of your index finger.
Yeah.
The bartender in me goes, wow, that's a lot of alcohol.
Yep. What they call in Canada, a double-double.
A double-double.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah. And it actually has had some profound effects as he talked about.
Yeah, they won the polo match.
Yeah, and so that was something new to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you had any amount like that yet? Have you tried to?
In my younger days, yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Okay. Any others?
I think when Dhawal Doshi spoke about Indian names being very prevalent in Indonesia, that was fascinating to me. Let's take a look at that one.
Go to my office. I have 3 people in my office who are named Indra,
which is an Indian god,
which is an
Hindu
Indian
god,
Hindu god, and many others. There's Lakshmanas, there's Savitri, there's Aditya as well.
Sure.
All these Hindu names, which are you don't even hear them in India, but they are there. They are very common, and these people are not Hindus. They are from an Islamic faith,
and it's not a conscious tribute to India, the country. It's just ingrained in their culture.
It's ingrained in their culture. They don't even associate, I think, this with the Hindu culture.
Okay.
They just consider it as if it was their own. They don't see a distinction between you can still be an Indra and be Islamic. I mean, there is no, in their mind, there is no.
I find that fascinating.
It is very fascinating.
Again, the historian in me, there's the reminder that we have such a diverse history, particularly that part of the world, right, which goes back thousands upon thousands of years. The degree to which cultural overlap and connection has made so many things that were once unique and of themselves shared.
Yeah.
Right. And we're still in that process today, whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
But that was such an interesting example. I never would have thought about that. That sounds like you hadn't thought about that either.
No, and I was surprised by it when I had gone to Bali in, I think it was 2001. But I think Indians in general are not used to others knowing about their culture, let alone being fans of their culture. Because the Indian stereotypes are Indian food, yoga, tech, right? You mentioned the other day when you offered a customer in your restaurant a water without ice, and the Indians were surprised. But so, it was on similar lines for me, like, oh, you know something about my culture. And not just a Westerner, but someone like Indonesia. It's like, do you know the names of our gods? Wow, that's amazing. That was kind of my learning in that conversation.
Okay, with that, I know that can happen for a host is when, as you called it earlier, a curveball. Right, with great baseball analogy, by the way.
In cricket, we would call it a bouncer.
A bouncer. Okay, so how about a bouncer? Did you have a bouncer moment that stands out to you?
Yeah, our guest, Divya Dias, made the trip down from Vancouver, and I asked her how was the border crossing. And, usually people be like, oh, there's traffic, and since this trade war, it's quiet. But she gave what I guess was a very random answer. Let's take a look at that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So, Divya, thank you for making the trip down here.
You're welcome.
How was the border?
So, I've started a new experiment where I try to make men touch pink things because I think touching pink softens you up. And I have this little Powerpuff pouch, like Powerpuff Girls, that's pink and glittery. And I put it in the baggage conveyance. And while taking out the other bags and stuff, he also took that out. And I could see him, for that moment, he softened up a little. He gave me a smile.
Interesting.
There was another man on the bus who wanted a pen. And I gave him a pink pen to fill the border form with. And when he did that, I could see him also smile. His demeanor went from, hey, you, to, hello.
Sure.
And so I'm currently running the pink experiment.
I totally expected that response from you. I knew it was not going to be the queue was short. I love your thought process. You always have very unique perspectives on things.
So good. You're right. It actually answered the question, right? I mean, she was answering it.
Yes.
How was it? But it was so unique. And what I loved about it is I remember sitting in the side studio looking through the glass at you, and I could see that it was a bouncer.
Yeah.
Right? We weren't quite sure where to go.
Yeah.
And yet I can't think of a better way to have introduced that guest. She was so iconoclastic and so unique and had such an interesting perspective on so many things. In the moment, how did you adjust to that?
No, I mean, in a way I wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't surprised by it.
Oh, okay.
So that helped me just pick right up and keep going.
That's good. Yeah, that was a really interesting episode. She had a lot of really unique perspectives, and it was a lot of fun. I remember that.
Well, this was very enjoyable, but we're almost at the end. So why don't we do a weekly segment where I will answer the question for once.
Okay, all right. So I have a special request. Can I be the one who asks for the DJ to spin the wheel?
Go for it.
All right.
Yep.
So, DJ, spin the wheel. All right. You know where we're going. It's Mango Memories.
It had to be.
Had to be Mango Memories.
Yep.
I'm excited about this. Everybody who's been listening to this show wants to hear your Mango memory. So go.
We have a farm in India which has 800 mango trees. And they're organic mangoes. There've never been any pesticide put on them. So every year we get dozens and dozens of those mangoes. And we freeze the pulp. And, the mango pulp is a delicacy in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to have mango pulp all year round.
Wow.
And when we have guests in December and they see us eating mango pulp, like it feels like a true flex.
Mm-hmm.
But my more recent mango memory was that when my son Arjun had his first solid food, it was a mango from the farm. And the farm is called Akash Farm. It's named after my brother.
Okay.
And my wife gave him a small lick of the piece of mango and then took it away. And he just lunged for it. So even a 6-month-old who's never eaten solid food before knows how good those mangoes are.
That's amazing. I've seen a video of that moment.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, that is quite a moment. And you can kind of see his eyes open up to this whole discovery of this new thing.
Mango.
Yeah, that's pretty great. That's pretty great.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's very enjoyable episode. Thank you for listening to Diaspora. And we hope you enjoyed this special conversation between JD and myself. JD, I hope you enjoyed it as well.
I did. It was really fun.
Yeah. Remember to check out our show notes for links and more information about the topics that we talked about today. Diaspora is part of the Speaking Current network of shows and podcasts, which also include Staying Power, that is JD's podcast. And all of these are dedicated to inspiring listeners to build lives of meaning, connection, and value. You can find the Speaking Current network of shows, including Diaspora, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also find all of them on YouTube. Lastly, if you know someone who has a story that can be shared on our show, feel free to reach out to us on any of our social media handles. We'll be back next week with another interesting story from the South Asian diaspora. Until then, take care and stay curious. And JD, thank you once again for coming.
Thank you. Here's to another 6 months.